Welcome, everyone, to Forever 49ers. My name is MichaelNiktaris. I'm your host today, and I will be giving a history of the rivalry between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. Why am I doing this? Well, firstly, I think it's really interesting. I think it's important as fans, 49ers fans and Cowboys fans and NFL fans, to know the relationships between the two teams, the history, the really rich history that's happened. Second reason I'm doing this is because Kyle Shanahan said a lot of his current players don't even know the history between the 49ers and the Cowboys, and they're playing in such an important game. I think it's really important for them to know the history as well. So I'm making the video for you guys, you 49ers players currently right now. You guys got to know the history, all right? It's really important. Sun Tzu, he's the ancient Chinese military scholar. He wrote, if you know yourself, you'll win 50% of the time. If you know your enemy, you'll win 50% of the time. If you know yourself and your enemy, you'll win 100% of the time. So let's dig right into it. The very rich history between the Cowboys and the 49ers. Firstly, the all-time records between the two. The Cowboys lead the series 19-17-1. It's pretty close, though. Meanwhile, in the playoffs, the Cowboys have a commanding lead. They are 5-2 in the playoffs, including 3-2 or 4-2 in the NFC Championship game. So let's go right into it, okay? There were 6 total NFC Championships that were played between the 49ers and the Cowboys. 3 of them happened in the 90s. One happened in the 80s, and then 2 of them happened in the 70s. So let's get into the first one. The 1970 NFC Championship game was played at Kezar Stadium here in San Francisco. John Brody was the quarterback of the time. San Francisco has a long history of great quarterbacks. We're going to get into a couple others, Joe Montana and Steve Young. But John Brody was the quarterback at this time. He played behind a great offensive line, and he was sacked only 8 times the whole year. During that game at halftime, Tony Bennett, the great singer Tony Bennett, sang, "I left my heart in San Francisco, high on a hill. She calls to me to be where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars. The morning fog may chill the air. I don't care. My love waits there. In San Francisco." One of my all-time favorite songs, sang by Tony Bennett. He lives in New York right now, but I think he recently retired from performing. He performed with Lady Gaga. But anyway, they sang that song at halftime, which I think is pretty cool. But in the game, the 49ers actually lost that game. They lost 17-10 to the Cowboys. The coach was Tom Landry, who at that point was the only coach in their history. He coached until 1989. So I think it was more than 30 years that he was a coach, which is pretty remarkable. But anyway, with all of these things that I'm saying, I'm going to link YouTube videos below of the actual games if you're interested in like just seeing what the players look like, how the game was played, even how the commentators were speaking. I believe Pat Summerall was one of the commentators in the game. So I'm going to link those below. You guys can check them out. Okay, so that was the first playoff game, the NFC Championship game. The Cowboys won, a close one, right? In 1971, the 49ers and Cowboys made it back to the championship game. And this time it was played at Texas Stadium. Again, the announcers, Pat Summerall and Jack Buck, Joe Buck's father. And again, in this game, the Cowboys dominated 17-3. They won that game. It was Roger Staubach's first game against the 49ers. And after the game, interestingly, Dallas received a visit in the locker room from Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, U.S. President. He was John F. Kennedy's vice president, and when John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, LBJ became the president. And he told Staubach, "You're the best. They should rename the place Staubach Stadium." It's interesting. Interesting how like history, right, intertwines with it, because, someone like LBJ, JFK, all these guys, they're people too, right? So they got their teams that they root for. And again, I'm linking the video, the YouTube video below in the description section. All right. So the third playoff game. So right now the Cowboys are ahead 2-0, right, in the playoffs. The third playoff game was 1972, the very next year, the divisional round of the playoffs. And this was played at Candlestick Park, different from Kezar Stadium. Kezar Stadium, I believe that's like kind of by Golden Gate Park. And then Candlestick Park is over there, like closer to the airport. It's like it's a little bit outside of the city, getting closer to like South San Francisco. But anyway, so that third playoff game was played at Candlestick. The 49ers were ahead, actually, 28-13 going into the fourth quarter. So, gosh, that is a frustrating loss. But, Roger Staubach, he leads that comeback. The Cowboys win it 30-28. Okay, and I believe the Cowboys won the Super Bowl in 71 and 72, those two seasons. And then the previous season in 1970, they lost, I believe, to the Baltimore Colts. Okay. But in any case, so far in the series, at least playoffs-wise, the Cowboys dominate, right? They're 3-0 in the playoffs, okay? Which sets the stage. 1981 championship game played at Candlestick. We've got a new set of characters. We've got Coach Bill Walsh, who's in his third season, okay? First two seasons were losing seasons, mind you, right? So the 49ers, to make it this far was already pretty impressive. People were already pretty impressed by that, okay? And Joe Montana is the quarterback, right? So this game is one of the most historic games in NFL history. And the reason for that is in the fourth quarter, the 49ers are down 27-21, and they get the ball inside their own 10-yard line inside their 20-yard line with about 3 minutes to play, 3 minutes and change to play. Joe Montana drives down the field, right? They're doing a lot of dink and dunk passes. He's hitting Freddie Solomon, who's lined up in the slot. Dwight Clark, he's also a great receiver. There was an offsides penalty at one point that gave the 49ers some life, gave them a first down. In any case, they get down inside the red zone, inside the 10-yard line, 3rd and 4. Okay? Bill Walsh calls this play change left slot, spring right option. So in this play, he's got two options. One is his first option is Freddie Solomon, who's the receiver, number 88, and then Dwight Clark, who is another receiver, number 87. Dwight Clark is supposed to be the second option. But in this play, Freddie Solomon actually slipped. So the Cowboys were able to get up on him. Okay, so he was taken out of the equation. Dwight Clark goes into the back of the end zone. He runs to the left, then he runs to the right. Bill Walsh tells Joe Montana, you need to throw it to the back of the end zone. Throw it high enough so that Dwight can make a play. Dwight was 6'4", right? Long arms. So throw it high enough so that he can make a play or it goes out of bounds. The main thing being is that they had another down. They had fourth down, right? The next play to, try to score a touchdown or get a first down, okay? So Joe Montana rolls to his right. He's got Cowboys defenders all, chasing him. He rolls to his right. He chucks it in the back of the end zone, and Dwight Clark, jumps up out of nowhere, right? He was streaking along the sideline. He's back there. He catches it like on his fingertips. And that is known as the catch. Just a really, really remarkable play. What's interesting, though, and by doing the research for this video, I actually found out like the Cowboys were actually threatening to score a field goal and actually take the lead back and win that game. If it wasn't for, let's see, Eric Wright, he's a cornerback. He actually made like a horse-collared tackle on Drew Pearson. Drew Pearson caught a 31-yard reception, and he's like at midfield. Wright makes this horse-collar tackle to bring him down. In today's NFL, that's a penalty, right? So they would have been like at the 35-yard line, and with 50 seconds left, would have at least probably had a field goal attempt. But in any case, he makes that tackle, and then on the next play, let's see, White, the quarterback, the Cowboys quarterback, takes a sack and he fumbles the ball. Jim Stuckley recovered the drop ball. So, the rest is history. But it's interesting to think, right? Because you think like, oh man, that's such a great play, the catch, right? But it's not like a walk-off play. It's not like a walk-off home run or, like a game-winning shot in the NBA. There was still some time left on the clock. And, they could have won that game. But anyway, that game really is seen as Bill Walsh calls it Camelot, right? That's like the beginning of the 49ers dynasty, right? That's the first of their 4 Super Bowls they would win in the 80s. They would win one again in the 90s. But, at that point, right, the Cowboys are dominating the series, at least in the playoffs. They were 3-0 coming into that. The 49ers win that game, and it becomes 3-1. So let's move forward a little bit into the 1990s. So Tom Landry, like I mentioned before, he was the head coach of the Cowboys from the moment they became a team, right? He was their coach all the way until 1989 when Jerry Jones bought the team, right? And Jerry Jones actually fired. He let Tom Landry go, which Jerry Jones is like a new guy in town. Jerry Jones' story is really interesting. I mean, that's a video, just for itself, right? But anyway, Jerry Jones hires Jimmy Johnson, who recently had a ton of success at the University of Miami. And, they basically start over. And Jimmy Johnson, he takes Herschel Walker, who's their best player, and he actually trades him to the Minnesota Vikings for 12 picks. And those picks would end up becoming like Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, a lot of great players, that were like the foundation of their dynasty. Okay. So all of this is going on. The Cowboys are like, they've got pieces, right? They've got pieces like to be great. And I think they made the playoffs in 1991 and even maybe won a playoff game. But in 1992, they're looking to make the next step, right? And the 49ers, and this is admitted by the 49ers owner at the time, was Eddie DeBartolo Jr., Carmen Policy, he was their president, and he helped with their decisions. They traded Charles Haley. Charles Haley was a defensive lineman, just like a really fierce player, really powerful player, and he could shift, the momentum in a game with how strong he was. Okay. But his thing was he was actually later diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So he had some, emotional and mental problems, right? And so he was getting into a lot of fights in the 49ers locker room. He was doing kind of crazy stuff, this and that, and they're not sure how to deal with it. So George Seifert was the coach at the time. I guess, they'd had enough of him, and then they called the Cowboys, of all teams, and made a trade. And I think it was only for a second and third round pick. But that trade seriously shifted the balance of power in the NFC and the NFL, because in 1992, the Cowboys would actually go into Candlestick Okay. And this game is called the changing of the guard, right? Because they went into Candlestick and they beat the 49ers 30-20. Okay. The Cowboys would go on to the Super Bowl. They would beat the Bills 52-17. Like, they really beat them, right? But in that game, Steve Young, I think he calls it like the most painful loss of his career. 4 turnovers by the 49ers, and 2 Steve Young interceptions in the fourth quarter, right? So that game, I mean, I know that Charles Haley, he made a huge impact on that game. The pressure, right? Steve Young probably doesn't throw those interceptions if he doesn't feel the pressure, which leads us to what happened the next year in the exact same fashion. 49ers and Cowboys, 1993 NFC Championship game. They both end up in the NFC Championship game, but this time it's played in Dallas at Texas Stadium. And again, the defensive line of the Cowboys overwhelmed the 49ers offensive line. I watched this game. I rewatched it. Oh my gosh. The Cowboys got up to a huge lead, 28-7. Okay. And they just had Steve Young on his back. Look at these numbers. So they go up. Let's see. They go up 28-7 at the half. They would end up winning 38-21. But look at these numbers. 4 sacks, 5 hurries, 7 knockdowns, 2 batted balls, 1 interception. And I mean, man, they just whooped them really bad. The 49ers couldn't really get much momentum. The Dallas offensive line was really, really great. It's called the Great Wall of Dallas. There with Nate Newton and Eric Williams. With Emmitt Smith, they just controlled that game from beginning to end. The 49ers didn't really have a chance in that game. So what happened that offseason was Eddie DeBartolo, who's the owner, Eddie DeBartolo Jr., is talking to George Seifert and Carmen Policy, and he's like, whatever it takes, we need to win, okay? Because they're at the door, right? They're in the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. And this was the year right there at the end of 93 when free agency started, okay? Before that time, I believe the team that drafted you, basically they could keep you as long as they wanted. No, people didn't have these contracts where they could leave, after the year. If a team wanted to hold on to you, they could hold on to you, right? And anyway, he's like, we need to do whatever it takes. So what the 49ers did was they acquired a couple of key players, right? The first one being Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is a great cornerback, and he was playing for the Falcons at the time. The Falcons weren't really winning. Deion wants to win, so he weighed his options, and he signed a 1-year deal to go play with the 49ers. And he would go on to become Defensive Player of the Year. He made a huge impact in the game. The other big player that they signed, the 49ers signed, was Ken Norton Jr., who was a linebacker, number 51. And that was a huge signing because in the same way that Charles Haley left the 49ers and went to the Cowboys, the 49ers took Ken Norton Jr. from the Cowboys and brought him over. So it's like you're taking one of their best players, right, removing him, and then bringing him to your side. It's like a double whammy, right? So in that game, the 49ers and Cowboys, again, make it back to the NFC Championship game, right? And in this game, the 49ers jump ahead really quick. 3 big turnovers in the first quarter put the 49ers up 21-0 with like 7 minutes to go in the first quarter, right? But the Cowboys were really resilient. They kept fighting back, but it wasn't their day. You could tell it just wasn't their day, especially when you start off a game with those, 3 turnovers. But that was basically the last playoff game, the last really significant game that the 49ers and Cowboys played. There were some other regular season games, of course. Game when Elvis Gerbach hit Jerry Rice on a slant, first play of the game at Texas Stadium. The next year, 49ers go win that game. There's the infamous T.O. game where he goes like on the star. We like copied that move, my friends and I, forever, like weeks and months after that. But that last game in 94, that 94-95 season, that's the last real meaningful game that the 49ers and Cowboys played playoffs-wise, right? And 49ers won that game. They would end up going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And Steve Young has that line where he says, you know, he got the monkey off my back, right? And he later said, like, he regrets saying that because it, like, takes away from, you know, the rest of the team and everything. But, you know, for his story, because he was, like, behind Joe Montana all those years, you know, and he's such a great player himself, it was a really big win for him, you know, to win a Super Bowl and bring a Super Bowl to San Francisco, you know, what he really wanted to do. But, you know, I'll keep making some more videos about the 49ers history. I'm also going to probably make a video about the keys to the game coming up here for the 49ers against the Cowboys. I hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts. I spent a lot of time researching this, and I think it's really important. You know, whether you're a casual 49ers fan, you actually played with the 49ers, you know, I think there's a lot of pride and, you know, a lot of honor in wearing those colors. You know, me, like, watching them from when I was a little kid, I can tell you, you know, how the team plays, you know, it really fires me up when I see my team giving it all they have and being the best they can possibly be. You know, so faithful to the Bay, you know, I've been watching 49ers games. I watch them all over the world. I've watched them in Europe. I've watched them here. I watched them when I lived on the East Coast, and, you know, I'll watch them forever, you know, as long as I can. But anyway, thanks for listening. Please share this video, you know, watch the video. Please share it with your friends and family, and share it with 49ers players too, you know, past and present. I think it's really important that everyone knows the history. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye-bye.